age of radio.
Episode, Missy and I are talking about leaving the past.
Ladies and gentlemen, please take your seats. The show is about to begin.
Into another episode of On Finding Peace. This is the podcast where Missy and I talk about daily tips and things that you can do to find your peace in life, regardless of what's happening throughout your life. So today we're going to be talking about our past and how we can leave that past, and we'll see where this discussion takes us.
Yeah, I'm excited
How
about
you doing?
I've been doing pretty good. Yeah. As I was kind of telling you, things have been kind of like very quiet and peaceful in a good way, but lots of information is coming at me. And so definitely taking that information and learning how to make sure that we're going forward with it and not bringing the past things into the future. So I thought today would be a great time to discuss that. And hopefully our listeners are, I'm sure they can all relate. I'm certain that everyone can relate. Yeah. How about yourself?
Well, we all have a past.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely.
So doing okay. Working on some health issues, but other than that, doing pretty good. Enjoying the summer. Getting a little touch of the heat wave,
Nice.
but I really do feel for those in the West who aren't used to the heat. At least the heat wave that I have right now is pretty normal for this area at this time of the year. So I can't really complain. But yeah, I got family out in Oregon, and they're seeing 100-some degrees when it's normally in the 60s and 70s. So
Wow.
yeah,
That's a big
so it's pretty
difference.
tough for them. Exactly.
Yeah, well, we see if you're watching this on YouTube, then you see who's inside and who's outside, because I'm not going to be out there melting. And Chris is actually, I hear his birds chirping in the background, overlooking the water and beautiful scenery outside.
Yes, I am outside only because I have a large fan just off camera
Oh, yeah.
on high speed.
Yeah. Not
So
making
without
any
the
noise
hair,
at
you
all.
can't see my hair moving.
Yeah.
So but it's doing its job.
Yeah.
If it weren't for that, I would be inside as well. And
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can't blame
So,
you. It's been gross out. Yeah. Well, so what is your take on the past, Chris? Do you think that you find a lot of your clients, they have the uncanny knack of reliving it over and over again?
oh yeah, and I did too. I mean, that was one of the things that I struggled with and do here and there. But yeah, a good majority of my clients, especially those who are talking about dealing with anxiety and stress, I typically start with, where is that anxiety or stress? Is that in the past or in the future? Because one of those two places is where it's going to exist. And I think what I find most often is, the people who are dwelling in the past and seem to be stuck there can't move beyond what has happened before. So
Yeah.
that's one of the hard things to work with, because our mind will keep us where we want it to be. And sometimes it's easier to stay in the past because it's less work. It may not feel as good,
Yeah.
but it's less work in the sense it's already done. I'm not living it. I'm not actively doing anything with it. I'm just watching it over and over. So I can sit and watch it, and that's a lot easier than saying, so what do you do with it?
Right.
So even though I may not feel good about it, again, it's easier to just not feel good about it, and I'll just put up with the not feeling good about it.
So do you think that, I mean, I don't want to say, because my impression of that is really kind of living in a victim mentality, and it
Hmm.
doesn't always have to be even, negative things that have happened. It can just be, something that wasn't pleasant. It wasn't, it wasn't ideal, right?
Yep.
But whether it's somebody cut us off in traffic or somebody was nasty to us at the store, we live with things like that happens, but like that's not a deal breaker for your whole life, right?
Right. Exactly.
But I think that if we tend to let those little things go, like those little nuisances go, then we have a higher tolerance for the things that have happened that are kind of like huge life events, right?
Hmm.
And I think that again, I think that we're all practicing, we're all doing the best that we can with the information and the knowledge that we have. But I think that practicing those little instances helps for us to release those bigger instances over time.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And to go back to what you're saying with that victimhood, my definition of victimhood deals with being not in control of the situation.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're not in control of the situation, you're a victim to the situation. And when I say situation, it could be person, if it's, abuse or whatever. Um, but the moment that you do have some power and control, you're no longer the victim. And that's where I think in living in the past continues that victimization, because we're just replaying over and over a moment in time when there wasn't any control and there was nothing you could do.
Mm.
But if that is already in the past, it's already over with. Well, you now do have control over what to do with it and
Right
how
now.
to, face it. So you're no
Yeah.
longer a victim, but you're allowing yourself to continue to relive the times when you were.
So have you ever heard the saying, our attachment to the outcome is what causes us suffering, right? So when you come across that victimhood that you were just kind of describing and the way that you see it, that rang in my ears. Like if we thought we had control over the way that it was going to go, then we're good to go, right? But when we don't have control, right, or attachment to the outcome is there, then that's when we suffer, and that's when we become the victim.
Yep.
So like, what do you usually recommend to people? Like, how do you feel like that's the best way to start to dig your way out of that mentality?
Well, two things is one, I help them to understand mindfulness, which is what you and I talk about all the time in just various
Mm-hmm.
ways, in the sense of trying to look at what is the purpose of the past. So for me, when I look at mindfulness, it's all about living in the present moment. But we do have a past. And the way I view the past is that it's a reality that has happened. We don't want to minimize that reality. We don't want to deny that reality, all of which are different forms of mental illnesses. We need to
Right.
stick with the reality. And reality is whatever happened to you, happened to you.
Hmm.
But these are the past tense. So the way I view that in the past is, what can we learn from that past? So we're not going to the past to play all of the what ifs, and we're not going to go into the past to try to find the victim, but let's go in the past and learn from it. So we can then, in the present moment, now that those events are over, in the present moment, I can say to myself, so based off of what I learned, what can I do with this? See, and that's that action piece. See, and if I can take
Yeah.
action, Again, I'm not the victim. I don't have to go back to the past because I can actually do something today based off of what I learned from that past that hopefully gives me a growth, for the future.
Mm. Do you think that we grieve and don't realize that we're grieving over whatever the instance was, and we grieve for too long? We don't let go because we don't know how to become neutral about something that we're grieving over.
I think that hits a huge point because what I think many people don't realize is grief happens anytime there's a loss.
Hmm.
So, I think many times we look at grief as what we feel when we lose something that we cherished. But grief really comes when we lose anything. Even when I talk to my clients who are dealing with addiction, if you're in recovery, there is periods of grief of losing that addiction life. And people might say, well, that's weird because that wasn't a healthy life. There were a lot of problems. Granted, but it was still your life.
Yeah, and it's also partial like identity. Like that's
Mm-hmm.
who we, believe that we are or think that we are. Again, the suffering, right, and the attachment to that outcome kind of goes back to a loss because like you have a
Mm-hmm.
goal, you have a dream, you have a perceived outcome that you think that it's going to be, and then when you're not, getting what you want, then there's a loss. Like,
Yeah.
recently I have had 2 clients who I've parted ways with, and it's great, honestly. I mean, like, I know it's all working out for my benefit, and I say it's great because I'm able to remain neutral about it. Like there's no
Mm-hmm.
sense of loss. There's no worry about the concern of, well, that money's going to be gone. And actually I've had so much more time on my hands. Like I'm actually gaining so much from this that I have no worry or focus on a loss, and there's no grief period. I mean, I don't want to say it because I did for just a minute, like, oh gosh, well, my unworthiness feelings came up and were like, well, there's something wrong with me. And then I went, wait a minute, no, I'm already successful, not because I have things or because I have money or anything like that, but I'm already a success because I feel that way here. I feel that way internally. So people giving me money doesn't make me successful. Me having
Mm-hmm.
so many amount of clients doesn't make me successful. I am successful because I say I'm successful. And I think that those beliefs of who they were as addicts, right? They lose their identity. They lose who they are.
Mm-hmm.
So there's that sense of loss as well.
Yeah. And anything that happened in the past, that is something that you lived, whether it was a long period, say, of some sort of childhood issues or abuse, or short periods,
Yeah.
and it doesn't matter because these are things that you lived, and you're going to have feelings from that. So grief is important, and that's where I think some people stay stuck there, just as you were saying, is one, they don't realize they're grieving. So it's hard to kind of overcome
Sure.
something you don't even know you're doing. Um, or again, it's easier to stay stuck, even if the stuck is not healthy or feels good.
Ideal. Right. Well, and
So,
I think at the end of the day that, it's a story, right? Our past is a story we tell ourselves.
hmm
I heard Keith Kochner is a author of a book called, I know it's going to draw a blank on me now, but I'll think of it. Anyway, Keith Kochner, look him up. The Exchange, that's the name of the book. Really
there it is.
good little book, very, very mindful book. And basically what he says is that events happen to everybody, whether it's divorce
hmm
or, even abuse or things of that events happen to everybody. But the people that look at it a different way are the ones that can move forward from that event, right? Because
Yep.
if we get stuck in our victimhood, then we're going to look at it one way. If we're stuck in an accountability, then we're stuck in we're looking at it a different way. We have a different perception of it. And I think that that's extremely important to look at. You can't always see an accountability in certain things. Like I would not be able to, as a child having been molested, I have no way to look at that as, how was I accountable for that? I wasn't flirting, you know, I was 4 years old. I didn't have that, you know. However, I can look at it in accountability on how do I perceive the situation? How do I look at it? I take my power back when I see that as just a situation that happened. I don't have to see it as good or bad. And not everybody is there yet. And I understand that and respect that. And I'm going to tell you that years it took me to get to that point. And forgive and love and, you know, just look at it as just a story that I tell about something that happened when I was younger. And I won't even say it happened to me at this point, because that indicates that victimhood still, right? So it's something that happened, period. But I think that it's just those little shifts in perception over time, right? That have you take that mountain and move it one dirt pile at a time to a different location and even out of your head, you know, where your ego doesn't tell you you're not worthy because of it, or that there's something wrong with you, or that you're broken and you need to be fixed. And I think that's important to just recognize in your words how you're telling the story.
Yeah, no, exactly. And it does take a while, you know, to be able to shift that perspective, you know, and it, as with everything, you know, I don't put timelines, you know, and I've always had the clients, well, how long will this take?
That's up to you. It is.
Yeah, you know, it's you know, because they always want, like, well, isn't there a book that tells you, you know, it should take X amount? It's like, no. It does take years, especially when I'm dealing with some of, you know, my clients who do have trauma, and the more trauma for a long period of time that you've gone through is going to take a bit longer. But it is all about really refocusing to saying, I have the ability right now to make choices. And I have the ability right now to not be that victim. You know, and I think one of the things, you know, is to come to that realization that, you know, it wasn't my fault. There was nothing I could have done. And, you know, I hear a lot about that, you know, piece of guilt. Well, maybe I should have done something different. Maybe I should. No, you got to get away from those pieces and start saying, you had no control then, but you have control now. So what are you going to do with your life now?
Yeah. I have some clients and people in my life who say, you know, like their mom might say certain things about them. And I'm just using moms as an example, right? And they say, well, that's my mom. But that's my mom. You know, she should love me. She should do all these things. But I think that mom has a story, right? And mom is only doing with the information that she has as well. But what are you saying about you? Are you saying that whatever mom says about you is valid, or are you saying whatever you say about you is valid? And it's funny because when I was in my darker period in life, I began to start listening to affirmations. And, you know, I had people laughing, like, not, you know, sweetly, you know, oh, isn't that cute? Oh, honey, you know, that kind of thing. And it felt so foreign. It felt alien to me that I was listening to something trying to tell myself that I'm a good person, that I'm smart and attractive and things of that nature. And then I started to believe it over time. Like that repetition of hearing those things for me gave me the confidence to believe that's what I was and that's who I was. And so people can laugh if they want. It's okay, you know, and because some people are just born confident, and I had to work at confidence. I had to work at being able to be on camera and feel good about myself and not body shame and those kind of things. And so what I'm trying to get at is start telling yourself a different story. Start believing those things in yourself, because it doesn't really matter at the end of the day what anybody else has said or done to you. It's all what's going on in your mind,
Mm-hmm.
you know?
And that's that other piece that we do have control over. And
Yeah.
for some people, that takes a lot of convincing, but we do have control over our thoughts.
Right.
And just because a thought pops into your head doesn't mean it's true, and doesn't mean that you have to entertain it.
So there's this saying, I went to a transformational school, and I love this teacher specifically said, and I will try to bleep my words, but you know, usually it's your ego saying things that are not nice about you, right? And so you say, thank you for caring. And then you put your middle finger up at them and say, F you for sharing, right? Because really that's that. I mean, and then you laugh at it. You're like, oh, that's kind of funny, right? But you don't have to buy into that. That's not something that you have to buy into, especially if it doesn't make you feel good. And that's typically how I feel like most people end up in a darker place, is because they are buying into the ego's voice.
Yeah. And unfortunately, when we play into that, many people are convinced that what they're hearing or what they're saying to themselves is the truth, and they can't get beyond that. And really, the best technique, because I go with the learning theory, is repetition.
Yeah.
So I like the affirmations, and it is unfortunate that many people find it hilarious. And I know
it's cute.
Well, Saturday Night Live had the parody of that, for a while. I think back in the '80s or whatever, and so that's how people look at it. But it's true, if we're going to believe what we're told in the negative about ourselves, why would that not be true in the opposite? So, if the thought pops into my head that, I'm stupid, why is it that I believe that I'm stupid? So wouldn't then the opposite be true, that if I keep saying in the affirmations over and over, I'm smart, that eventually I'm going to believe that in the same way that I was believing I'm stupid?
And you bring up such a good point that I really want to touch on this, because, people have probably heard Tony Robbins say this, but this has helped me extremely in my life as well, is what kind of questions are you asking yourself? Like, if you're asking your questions like, why am I so stupid? Then your brain wants to be right, and it wants to find reasons that you're stupid. So like, you made a mistake, you maybe missed the equation, you got it wrong, bad test grades, whatever it was, those were reasons to answer that questions like, see, you are stupid because you want to be stupid. This is what we're showing you. But if you ask questions like, how can I be successful? Then you find like, oh, look, I just put my flower box together. Yay, that's a success. Or I made dinner and I didn't burn it. Yay, that's a success, right? And you ask the right questions, and you'll start to see that you're getting the good answer, the answers that you want, that will fulfill you, that will make you happy, that will put you at peace.
Yeah. And it goes back to, and I think we've said this before on the podcast, but I know I've written about this, that, we're going to receive what we think. So the more that we think in the negative, we're going to start receiving the negative, because our perception is going to become negative.
Yeah.
So the world around us is all going to become negative. And the opposite is true. If I'm always looking for the positives in me, then I'm going to see the positives in the world.
Yeah. And that's where the law of attraction comes from. Where your focus goes, your energy flows. And we are all energy. Everything that happens around us, that's how you draw those people to you. So like attracts like. Like attracts like. If you're thinking negative, you're going to attract negative things, or people, or circumstances, and vice versa with the positive. Right. And so look, if you can look at it instead of bad or wrong or right and good, you can make a correction, right? Don't judge it, just make a correction, because that correction will help you get back onto the path of drawing in the things that you really want in your life.
Right. And for me, that correction is I explained to my client session one that I'm not going to use those words, good, bad,
Yeah.
right, wrong,
Yeah.
because who am I to judge somebody else? But
Hmm.
what we're going to use is healthy and unhealthy.
Oh, that's a good one too.
In my mind,
And
that's not a judgment because I'm always asking them what's healthy for you.
yeah,
Because again, everybody's different. So there might be something that say they're doing that they're, it's like, well, this really is healthy, and explain to me why it's healthy. Um, that, maybe I would think to myself, well, that's not what I would do, but
well, and
it's
that's what
healthy for them.
coaching is. Coaching is not telling them what you would do, right? Coaching is
Nope.
telling them is finding out, drawing out of them what they would do. Education is actually from the word educar, which means to draw out. And so that's
Hmm.
what coaches really do, is draw out of you what you already know is best for yourself. And one more quick thing is, when you're doing all these things, just remain open. Just keep open to how it's supposed to happen. That way you're not suffering to, attaching yourself to an outcome and suffering if it doesn't go your way. You just have to be
Right.
open to the best thing that's going to happen for you. And it will.
Hmm. Yep. No, all definitely important topics, because now we've got the perception.
Yeah.
And, again, how I see things is how it is. So if you don't like it, then change it.
Yeah.
Easier said
Simple.
than done, but it's doable.
It's simple. It's so easy. Let that be your mantra. Let it be easy, because, we all, if we think it's challenging, again, it's going to be challenging.
Yeah,
But if we think it's going to be easy, then
then it's going to be
it's
easy.
like, yeah, hot knife through butter. You know what I mean?
Hmm. Which just took me over to English muffins for some reason. Interesting.
Yum. Must be lunchtime there, huh?
No, I just ate. That's why it's a little scary that I went to more food. Uh,
Well, thank you so much for everything today, Chris. It was a great conversation.
yes, it was, and I hope you can stay cool. And it was really good to look at how do we move beyond that
Mhm.
past and not to stay stuck with it. Um,
Absolutely.
so we definitely encourage everybody, if you like what you hear, to share this on social media, share it with your friends, leave us comments. What do you like, what don't you like, what topics would you like us to talk about, because even though we pick topics that seem like things we want to talk about, we'd like to talk about what you want to talk about. So
Yeah.
we appreciate any and all feedback, and have a great day.
All right. Thanks for listening, guys.